Hey everybody, my name is Robert Pierce, and I'm here to talk to you a little about camping safety. So when you begin planning your trip for you and your friends, there's a few things you need to consider. Having the correct gear, minimizing black bear exposure, and fire safety. All three of these things are crucial to you making it home safely to your family. So let's talk about gear for just a moment. One thing you need to consider whenever you're purchasing your gear is what season are you going to be camping in. This is important because a lot of gear is rated at certain temperatures. You want to make sure that you have a sleeping bag, for example, rated at -10 if you're going to be sleeping in -10-degree weather. Because if you have something like a 30-degree sleeping bag, you're probably going to catch hypothermia. And that's going to lead to a disastrous experience, which you might not survive. Another thing you need to consider whenever you're planning your trip is how far out away from civilization are you going to be. This is important because you may not be able to haul all your water in with you. If this is the case, you need to find the closest water source and bring a water filtration device. This is important because water out in the wilderness is filled with bacteria. This bacteria can make you sick and lead to dehydration. Dehydration can lead to you not making it out of the wilderness alive. You also need to make sure you have enough food for your trip, because if disaster does strike, you need to make sure you can survive. Another thing you need to have is sturdy boots and good wool socks. Wool socks are important because they are moisture wicking, and they'll pull the moisture away from your feet and keep your feet from getting what they call trench foot. Trench foot can actually lead to you having to have your foot amputated, but most of the time, as long as it's caught early enough, that's not a problem. One very important piece of gear you need to have in your pack is an emergency kit. There's all sorts of small packing lists for emergency kits all over the internet. You can also purchase pre-made emergency kits. This is also a safe route to go also. They include a few things such as waterproof matches, duct tape, little odd and end things that you may need. All right, let's move on and talk about minimizing black bear exposure. A few things you need to consider whenever you're trying to minimize black bear exposure is the fact that black bears are mostly harmless. As long as they know you're there, they're not going to bother you. So while you're moving to your campsite, you want to make sure you make noise. Now, I'm not saying scream and yell like you're dying, but enjoy yourself, Sing a song or clap your hands. Just have a good time. Move as a group. That's another important thing you need to do. So when you choose your campsite, one thing you need to consider is, are there any food sources nearby? Because if there's a food source nearby, there's probably going to be bear activity in that area, because a bear's diet actually consists of 70% fruits and nuts. So this is something you need to think about whenever you're choosing your site. And once you choose your campsite, you need to hang your food up. This is crucial here. You need to find a good tree with a limb about 20 foot off the ground, about 100 meters away from your camp, so that you can take a rope, tie it around your what they call a bear bag, tie the other end around a rock, throw it over the limb, pull it up, you're good to go. So anyways, let's move on and talk about fire safety a little bit. A few things you need to consider whenever you're thinking about having fires, if you can do without. If you can do without a fire, do without, because fires have devastated our wildlife and our wilderness. So if you can go without, go without. If you must have one, build small. A small fire in a fire pit, surrounded with rocks, away from low-hanging limbs. That is the safest route to go, and that will minimize the risk of a wildfire starting. After you're done with your fire, douse your fire. Make sure you pour enough water on there that you can stir it and make sure the fire's properly out. Feel in the ashes, make sure there's nothing warm. And before you leave your campsite, walk around the perimeter and make sure that no embers have floated away and are smoldering. So in conclusion, I've talked about having the right gear for your trip, minimizing black bear exposure, and fire safety. These three things, as I said before, are crucial to you making it home alive and safely. There's one more thing that I would like to say before I leave you all is leave no trace behind.